Hello and welcome to my channel. I recently hit 100,000 subscribers and it's been my dream to hit that level ever since I started doing YouTube all the way back in 2012. And yet, here I am, still making videos and past my goal. So in response to that, I'll be producing a lot more content for this week. Expect one video every 2 days or every day, somewhere in that area. And on Saturday of the following week, there will be a live stream coming up. That's right, this Saturday, there will be a live stream featuring me and a few of my buddies, so keep an eye open for that. In the meantime, sit back, relax, turn the lights down as we got 3 more Let's Not Meet stories narrated by yours truly. Let's begin. The Snarl by Penmore27. Occasionally I enjoy coming to Let's Not Meet to read the bizarre stories posted on here, but I'd never imagined I would have a story to share myself. To share a few details about myself, I'm a young man in my early 20s who recently graduated from college. Before I begin this story, I must admit that I avoid confrontation unless it's absolutely necessary, and I almost never raise my voice. In all honesty, I cannot shout. I am simply a quiet person. A few weeks ago, I went to a local park district swimming pool to swim some laps, which I do every evening. Before the adults begin swimming, that is. There are swim lessons for young children ages 3 to 6. As children swim, the parents get to watch on the pool deck and talk amongst one another. The building the pool's located in is quite old, so there's a lot of winding concrete staircases coming down from the pool deck. Admittedly, it's rather odd, but a charming feature to the pool. They installed ramps for those in wheelchairs over the years as well, in case anyone was wondering. When the children's classes are over, the parents walk down one flight of stairs and into the hallway. The children walk down 2 separate flights of stairs leading into the men and women's lockers room respectively. I use the term locker room loosely because there's not really a room per se, it's simply a wall that separates the lockers from the hallway. While that may sound strange, that parents do not accompany their children into a locker room, the locker room floors are quite wet and slippery, and quite frankly disgusting. So the parents tell their children to walk directly into the hallway, where they help their children change. Essentially, there's probably only a 10-second period in which a parent would not see his or her own child after they walk down the flight of stairs into a locker room and out of the hallway. Normally when I arrive, I expect to walk into an empty locker room. On this particular day though, the locker was seemingly empty, and as I was beginning to change in a remote corner of the room, I heard a noise. I wasn't necessarily alarmed, because it was a public locker room after all, and there might be another male swimmer who is also preparing to swim laps. However, when I finished changing, something compelled me to look around and see who was in the locker room, which is not something I normally do. That's when I saw him, a man who is approximately 5'10" and 150 pounds, wearing a white baggy shirt with black sweatpants. He was sitting in the corner, and his eyes were scanning the room nervously and quickly, as if we were in a crowded room. We locked eyes for a moment, but he kept scanning the room. While I normally do not have gut feelings or bad vibes about people, I had a visceral reaction to this man. He made me feel nauseous and utterly uncomfortable. I decided to retreat to my corner of the locker room and wait until I could start swimming. A few minutes later, 5 boys walked into the locker room, chatting excitedly in Polish. I live in a city with a high number of Polish speakers, me being one of them. Recently, I have begun learning the Polish language because I've always wanted to learn more Slavic languages, and obviously I would have plenty of opportunities to practice Polish where I live. A few weeks prior to this incident, I downloaded a silly app to help me learn vocabulary. One of the phrases I had to translate was, "Is this your father?" While I was translating this sentence, I thought to myself, this will only be useful if I move to Poland and make a spin-off of The Murray Show there. But as soon as I found out, the phrase is truly helpful to learn. Anyhow, the arrival of the boys into the locker room is normally my cue to run up the stairs in order to jockey for a prime swimming lane with the old ladies who swim at the same time I do. However, the presence of this man constrained me to stay in a room until the kids were safely with their parents. For whatever reason, the kids were especially animated, and instead of dutifully walking out of the hallway, they were wandering about the locker room, chatting excitedly. This went on for a few minutes, and I was starting to daydream, when suddenly I realized I only saw 4 of the boys. My heart started to race as I scanned the locker room, nervously looking for the 5th boy who entered. I finally saw him, and he was talking to the stranger. The stranger was sitting on a bench, making eye-level contact with the boy. He's talking to him in English in a low voice, which I thought was odd, because I truly think most of those children mainly and only speak Polish. Something about the encounter was off-putting. Suddenly, the man reached out and grabbed a child's hand. He didn't do it forcefully, but it was disturbing for me to watch. I'm an Irishman, and my grandmother always told me that the Irish have short-lived, passionate lives and unexpected bouts of rage. When I saw him grab the child's hand, I became furious. A rage I truly have never felt, and one that I cannot fully explain in words, happened. Immediately, I yelled out, "Is that your father?" in Polish. Thanks to the Polish app I downloaded, I was able to speak it correctly. The child turned around and responded, "Nile," or "ni," which means no. "Why are you speaking with this child? What business do you have here?" I asked the man in English impatiently. Why do I speak like a medieval English king when I get angry? I don't know. He looked up at me and said nothing. I stormed over to him and forced myself between the man and the child, so he released the grip on the little boy. At this point, the 4 little boys had stopped playing around and were huddled together. The 5th boy retreated back to the group, and I started backing away from the man. I never took my eyes off him, but I placed myself between him and the children as they walked into the hallway. The man, watching me, completely and utterly lacking any expression in his face, remained. The boys ran to their parents, and for a moment it was just the man and I in the locker room. He slowly stood up, and he flashed his teeth at me, similar to the way a dog shows his canine teeth when it growls. It was an expression of pure, unadulterated aggression, and an expression one would expect if they were watching a show about primates on a nature channel. After flashing his teeth momentarily, he returned to his stony cold, emotionless expression. At this point, I was completely startled, so I went into the hallway and tried to explain what happened in my very broken Polish. The parents were looking at me incomprehensibly, but I finally realized one of their fathers was bilingual, so I explained what had happened, and he quickly translated what I said to the other parents. And a few of the fathers and I rushed back into the locker room, but the man was gone. We searched for them until one of the fathers realized that the door I had always expected to lead to a janitorial closet actually leads outside. It was wide open. In the few moments I had been in the hallway, the man made his escape. I ran outside, but I could not see him anywhere, and I reported the incident to the park staff, who did not find the story nearly as alarming as I or the parents did. After I swam, I talked it over with a few of my family members who are police officers on the phone, and I decided to go with the local police station on this one. However, with all the actual crimes committed in the city, I doubt anything will come of my report. Since that day, I have not seen the man. After this incident, the parents accompanied their children off deck, and the other swimmers are much more vigilant now. We all try to look out for the kids. I mean, it's something you have to do. I do not know what his intentions were, and sometimes I wonder if they completely overreacted, or if I completely overreacted. Instinctually, though, I believe his intentions were nefarious. Looking back, I wonder if I could have handled the situation better. But I'm just glad the kid's okay. So, creepy snarling man, Let's not meet again. The Customer is Not Always Right by Nation. This happened to me and my family about 2 years ago, but recently I was reminded of it as I was browsing the subreddit. I thought I'd recount it as best as I could and share it with all of you. To start things off, you need to know some backstory. My father is a huge collector of antique items and has a vast knowledge of them. He definitely knows when something is worth money. For a long time, he's been auctioning these items off online, and because of his experience from doing so for so many years, he gets very high ratings. One thing he's always been complimented on in reviews by buyers from around the globe is his packaging. Nothing is ever damaged, and while being shipped, it usually arrives on time exactly as listed. But that's more of a UPS type thing, so good on you, UPS guy. Another thing he's very knowledgeable of because of these online markets is scams. He found himself dealing with attempted scams in the past, but he managed to sort things out by the end of the day. Naturally, after a scammer is exposed, they're gonna be a little pissed, but that's to be expected, and it's not quite hard of a problem to deal with. However, one such scammer went farther than anyone else ever has to this day. Upon receiving the item he had ordered from my father, he emailed an angry complaint to my father that he had failed to mention any of the damages to the item. This was strange, since it surely wasn't damaged during shipping because, as I mentioned before, my father is very adept in his packaging skills. The item was also not damaged when he acquired it and listed it, so the customer's story made no sense. What he eventually figured out was that this person was trying to scam him by damaging the item himself and getting his money back. I'm not sure exactly what the policy is for returning on the website, but my guess is that the item's flaws are unlisted, so to speak. The seller loses more money during the return process, and maybe it's not even close to that. I don't really know how it works, but I do know it was something that get him more money than my father. The point is, this guy was bullshitting my father, and fortunately, his bullshit detector was far superior. So as a normal person would do, my father confronted the guy and basically called him out. This made the guy pretty unhappy, and eventually the site he was selling on had to help him sort this out. After that was all done, my father ended up winning the case and successfully avoided being scammed. This infuriated the now exposed scammer even more, and so he sought to get revenge. Once again, my knowledge of the site he uses to sell is not very good, but somehow this guy got our home phone number, so I guess my dad had the number listed, or the guy might have found it with the return address on the package. Whatever the case was, he found it and made sure to call my father to express just how pissed he was. These weren't typical angry customer calls though, and what gives this whole situation the whole let's not meet vibe. I can't remember exactly how long this lasted, but he begun to call our home daily at the most ungodly hours, well past midnight. We'd all be sleeping, and then the home phone would just start ringing loudly, and we'd wake up, and the whole house would wake up. The guy was pretty damn determined because he was, well, these untimely calls soon became a regular occurrence. I vividly remember being woken up on several occasions myself. Of course, my father answered these. I never knew what exactly transpired during these calls, and I only still have a vague understanding of what happened during them from what I overheard from my conversations that my father would have with my mother. But what I did overhear was enough to terrify me. The guy wasn't pulling your heavy breathing, maniacal laughter and hanging up shit. No, he'd go absolutely ape and spew threats over the line at my father. I don't know specifically what these threats were, but I do remember some of the ones my father mentioned. The guy would talk about how he wanted to kill my father and that he was going to send someone to take care of him. Later, these threats escalated from him not only targeting my father, but my family as well. He said he was going to kill us among committing other atrocities, including rape. Needless to say, these calls continuously tormented us and set the entire house on edge. Again, my father was a smart guy, and thankfully this sort of story has a good ending. He didn't want to put up with this guy's shit and eventually got the police involved. From what I know, the police gave the guy a visit and effectively got him to back off, because after that, we never got any more of those phone calls. My father has since deactivated the account he usually originally used to sell items and created a much more private one. No instance like this has ever happened to us since. So, angry phone scammer or whatever. Let's not meet again. Red-Eyed Man by Weeaboo Jones. First, a bit of context. I'm 15, 5'11", medium size, and I have rather long brown hair. At the time, I moved about 2 months ago, I lived in a house that backed up into the downs. Quite a big expanse of hills and woods. My back garden fence looked straight on out to a woody hill. Very thick trees, so a few steps in and you couldn't see a thing. Now, with that being context, and with enough context, let's get right into it. I prefer to walk my 2 dogs at dusk, and so like every day, me and my pretty big bull terrier and douche hound, or wiener dog for you American twonks, were out for a walk on the only path in this super thick wood. The sun was close to setting, and I was heading back. It was very common for me to bump into people up there, as it was a very lovely place to run, walk, cycle, or simply talk. I was about halfway back when a man in his late 50s or early 60s walked into my view with his tiny, like the size of a handbag, dog in hand. I immediately felt a wave of discomfort. Something about the way he walked was very weird, and I don't know how to explain it. But he was a super creepy and old dude. Anyways, he came closer and spoke to me in a really gruff voice. I could tell he's been a smoker for a long time. Lovely day for a walk, is it not? Yeah, I guess. These your dogs? Yeah? How much for the smaller one? I was taken aback. I would never sell my beloved dogs. I've had him for about 6 years, and he was property of my family. Not for sale. Sorry. You sure? I'll pay a nice sum. Yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, I gotta head home. I'll walk you back. Around this point, I noticed his eyes were red. Not red like a demon, red as in they were bloodshot, or he was albino or something. They looked very red. No need. It's very close. Oh? Whereabouts? Don't worry about it. See ya. I'm sure I will. That was terrifying on its own, but then he grabs my hair and stops me. Wait, let me give you my number, just in case you change your mind. His hands, he hands me a scrap of paper with his number on it, and I thank him, and I run my ass all the way home. I threw the paper away, and this wasn't the last time I saw him. 2 days later, as I was walking home from school late, this man in a big black coat looks at me from across the street. I thought nothing of it, but then he turns around and starts walking in the same direction. Red flag number 1, I speed up and he speeds up. Red flag number 2, I stop, he stops. Ding dong, red flag number 3, I break into a sprint for my friend's house. 5 minutes away from mine, I look back, red eyes. It's the same fucking guy from the place. I knocked on my friend's house door manically. The guy gaining up quick, Max, my friend, opens the door and I jump in, slam the door behind me. Dude, what's wrong? Old creepy guy stalker, he's fucking following me. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm fucking sure. Are you sure? Yes, I'm fucking sure! Call the fucking police! I did, and they didn't find him. I got a lift home from him, and that still wasn't the last time I saw him. About a week later, I was in my room playing on my PC. I often looked out the window to look at the trees. It was night, and I could barely just make out the individual outlines of the trees. Anyway, about 10 minutes later, I looked out again and I saw a figure. Normal enough people take night strolls there all the time, except he wasn't moving. He was staring directly at my fucking window. I grabbed my torch, opened my window, and pointed at the figure. I see a man in his late 50s or late 60s with bloodshot red eyes. He smiles and then attempts to climb over the fence. My stepdad, a buff as fuck South African man, sees this from the kitchen and he screams at the top of his lungs. If you take one more fucking step, I will gut you and I will skin you alive. The man smiles again and simply leaves. From then on, I walked my dogs in the park 10 minutes away, but every now and again, I have seen an old man in a black coat sitting on a bench looking at my dogs. We moved 3 months later, and I haven't seen him since. So, creepy red-eyed man, let's not meet again. Hey, for anyone who's made it this far, I kind of want to just give my thanks for the authors of Let's Not Meet. Really, I'm glad that they let me read their stories, and they're really good stories, and I really do think that they all deserve credit. That is why at every fucking video I make sure to include the author's name no matter how weird it is, and I make sure to include the name of the story. There's also links in the description, and if they have other works, I really do recommend you try to hunt them down. Other than that, thanks for watching my video. It's been like living a dream doing this YouTube thing, and all of you guys who supported me for this long, whether you came from I Hate Everything, Mr.Nightmare, Tatstop videos, it doesn't fucking matter. I am so glad to have all of you guys on my channel, and I'm like crying right now, because I've always wanted to hit 100,000, and it's just been crazy, because I finally did it, you know? If you guys would like to watch more Let's Not Meet stories, I do have a playlist for that type of thing. If you want to support the show financially, I will do private readings, or sometimes you can catch me in my recording sessions live if you donate $10 or more to the Patreon. Really, any little bit helps out enough, so $1 to $10 really is enough for me. Anyway, if you guys have any questions or want to submit anything for the Q&A or be there for the live stream, just simply comment in the video below letting me know you got this far. I'll make sure to give you guys a little bit of extra love. Till tomorrow.